Good day out there to all my listeners, and welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way? And I'm your host. My name is Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And for those new listeners out there, let me kind of share with you what this podcast is all about. It's for individuals who are ready. I mean, really ready to overcome obstacles that are in their life, to, like, I would say, mitigate those self imposed barriers, those barriers that could be your childhood, could be your self-esteem, could be your comparison. It's just a number of self-limiting beliefs or barriers that's preventing you from living your best life on your terms. And we talk about topics related to personal and business improvement and even self-improvement. And who do we have today to help us talk about that? And I'm going to introduce her to you. I'm going to put her on stage with me, and I'd like to welcome Sabine Schoepke. Welcome, Sabine.
Thank you so much, Cassandra. So
Yeah,
happy to be here.
yeah, I'm glad you're here. Listeners, you know what I'm going to do first is I'm going to introduce her by reading her bio. And this is a unique bio, I would say, because I just want to highlight some things in the beginning, but also want you to know the topic today is embracing the power and purpose of our emotions. We all have them, and and let's kind of talk about how we're going to embrace them. And what's the purpose of emotions? Maybe some of us like to hide it and just don't even want to talk about it, and that could prevent a lot. But we're going to find out a lot about that from Sabine today. But I like to describe her, and this is what she has experienced. It's not what someone's told her or what me, but her life experience. She is a power life. The power life, I would call her the power life. And she's igniting progress through clarity. Is like putting gasoline on a fire. That's amazing, isn't it? Now, clarity, she's experienced when she has clarity, it changes minds, it changes lives. It's not magic, it's just clarity and a mindset. Now, Sabine has journeyed through entrepreneurship, single motherhood to twins, and triumphed over trauma and cancer. She's dedicated to sharing how she turned these challenges into victories. Her strategy, clarity, and the right mindset fuel success. Emotions, she said, emotions are our superpower. Power. Fear doesn't get a vote, and failure isn't an option. You heard that, guys? Fear doesn't get a vote, and failure isn't an option. Sabine's approach centers on emotional intelligence and a growth mindset, helping you achieve holistic success and happiness. She believes greatness resides within everyone, and she is here to unlock that potential and equip us with tools to break through your limitations. Wow, what a bio, I tell you. I tell you, that's magnificent. I just love the power life. We all want to have a powerful life, right?
Yes.
So, my first question to you is, please share your journey that led you to what I would call unlocking your superpower. Like something happened there for you to be on this journey to unlock superpower. Share that with us.
So I, just like everybody else, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners and people who watch your podcast, we all have struggles, we all have challenges. And um, I took inventory of mine about, I want to say probably about 4 years ago. And I didn't really look in the rearview mirror much before that, and I was always focused on what's ahead. What do I need to manage now? What do I need to overcome now?
Okay.
And once I took inventory, I was in a really, really dark place.
Mhm.
I had a home invasion. I got attacked in my sleep. I got brutally beaten and almost raped. And I had terrible PTSD. And I found myself in a spot where I thought, you can't do this.
Wow.
And that's when I looked in the rearview mirror and I realized, wait a second, you have come all this way.
Mhm.
You have done all of those things. This is not going to get you down or destroy you.
Mhm.
And it was then that I realized, wait a second, how did I do this before? I did it intuitively before the things
Yeah.
I dealt with, but to take inventory and really kind of reverse engineer and say, how did I do this so I can do this now? What was the formula?
Right. Yeah.
That's what sparked this, and it changed my life. And that really horrible incident actually became, I look at it today as a gift because it was a wake up.
Mm. Mm.
And it propelled me forward like nothing else in life. And to a point where I picked myself up, dusted myself off,
Yeah.
and I got new energy from that and from the lessons I had learned from before. And I created things and I reinvented myself completely all over again. And to a point today, 4 years later, where I retired early in my 50s, and my sole purpose and mission at this point in my life is to share the things that I realized in my darkest hour.
Wow, that's amazing because, a lot of us have been, and some, if you haven't, some will be in a very dark place.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that's a process. Do
Yeah.
you know, like what is it about you that made that change, you think? Because I don't take that change for granted. I mean, it's like a superpower. Like, what in the world happened? Like, what did you, once you made up your mind, like, what was some steps that you took? Or what was some, a mindset, I guess, that can help my listeners be able to break through and create their superpower as well?
There's a couple of things. The first one, I think, is when we realize that we have the power to change our narrative at any given time. Like,
Okay.
yes, this is what happened to me, and that was not my fault. Like, I didn't, it wasn't my fault, but it was up to me to change the narrative around that and say, okay, I'm not going to let this destroy me.
Okay.
I'm in charge.
Okay.
So what is it that I can do to turn this thing around? And the other thing is also to get that clarity and say, okay, wait a second. I do want to live. I
Mm.
don't want to lose my business, because at that point I was in such a dark place. I was so depressed. I couldn't get out of bed. I started drinking, like heavily drinking, to numb the pain.
Yeah.
But wait a second. No, that's not what I want for myself. And for me, a big driver was my daughter. How am I going to look at my daughter?
Okay.
And how am I going to give advice to her if I can't do this for myself?
Right. Okay. Thank
So
God for her.
I created a clarity on what it is that I wanted. I want to live.
Okay.
Because I knew if I was going to continue that way, that was it. Like, this was not going to end well. What do I need to do? I need to find ways to lift myself back up. It's a hard struggle. PTSD, and then the depression that comes with it, and the alcohol and all that. It's a really tough struggle.
Yeah.
And I found something back then. For me, it was working out. I went to the gym. I started working out and I realized, oh my God, you feel better. The endorphins that kick in, you feel
Okay.
better. So sometimes I would go 2-3 times a day just to keep myself out of that really dark place and lift
Yeah.
myself up. You need
Okay.
to find one thing that inspires you. And in this case, it was my daughter. And you need to find one thing that's the tool to lift you up and say, okay, I feel better. I can do this for a few hours. I feel better.
Okay. Great. So, okay. So usually when we're in a dark place, we're also very unhappy. So what questions should we ask ourselves when we're in that place, when we're just so unhappy?
That's a good question. And I think what matters the most is how we ask the question.
Okay.
Not, why am I so depressed?
Okay.
Why can't I get out of bed? What's wrong with me? Like, the why questions don't work, because
Okay.
again, they make us look back and at the terrible things and say, oh gosh, why can't I handle this? Why,
Mm-hmm.
like the questions we need to ask ourselves are what questions?
Okay.
What can I
What?
do to lift myself up?
Okay. That's good.
And in that case, for me, what I found was working out. Or what can I self to get myself out of bed right now?
Okay.
And I realized that when somebody came to me and didn't ask me a why question, but they came to me and said, what can I do for you today to make you feel better?
That's good. What can I?
Because the question is what? Because when we ask what, we look ahead.
Yes. Right.
When it's
Mhm.
why is this happening to me? Why am I feeling this way? Why can't I? That's
Like
that.
judgment. It's like judgment. We're
Yes,
judging
it
ourselves,
is.
right?
Yeah.
Wow. And that's not good at all.
No.
What do you think the most difficult thing to accomplish in one's life? The most difficult thing to accomplish.
I think for us right now, and I can only speak from my own
Sure.
experiences, is to really, really zoom in on your own identity, on what you are. Because when you figure that out, you can create the clarity around that to figure out what it is that you truly want.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem is that many of us were brought up in a culture, in a society, in an academic system where things were standards, values, morals, expectations were put upon us
Yeah.
that aren't truly our own.
Yeah. That's so
And
true.
we're misled by that
Mm-hmm.
because we don't really even know the difference until we get the awareness for it.
Mm-hmm.
When I learned to really zoom in on who is Sabine, like what is Sabine? What makes her tick? What makes her happy, like truly happy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then we can create clarity around that. And now we have a compass. We have a North Star, what we aim for. Because with everything I've done in my life, and I've done a lot of things very successfully, for the most part of my life, once I reached those goals,
Mm-hmm.
it felt really empty. Like it didn't
Mm.
feel like what I thought it would feel like.
Okay.
About, I would say probably like 3 years ago, I did an inventory of my list, my bucket list, what I wanted to achieve in life.
Okay.
And I checked all the boxes. And
Wow.
again, it put me into depression. I was like, and now what? I don't have a North Star anymore. And I don't feel the way I thought I would feel when I achieve all of that.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah.
And when you talk, I have clients I work with and very, very successful people. And they're so empty. There's this
Mm-hmm.
emptiness in them. And you would think, looking from the outside in, oh my God, they have everything.
Right.
They have a lot of money. They have a beautiful house. They have the kids. They have the
Yeah.
wife. And yet they're like, I don't know. No. What am I
That's
going to do?
yeah. That's sad.
And
Wow.
I think it's because when we figure out what we truly are, not who we are, because we can be a entrepreneur, we can be
Mm-hmm.
a millionaire, we can like all of those things, but they don't make you truly happy. Yeah, they pay your bills, but then okay, and then what?
That's right.
But
Okay.
when we realize what we truly are,
Mm-hmm.
then that fills us up. That lifts us up.
Yeah.
That
The weight.
oh my
Yeah.
God.
Wow.
That makes us want to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Until about 6 months ago, I owned my last company and I sold it. And people did not understand. People were like, you make so much money. Like, why would you sell that? Why would you give that up? I said, because I don't like getting up anymore in the morning. I don't like going there anymore.
Mm. Okay. So you got clarity. You're
Oh,
clear
yeah.
on what it is that
Yeah.
you like, what it is that you don't like. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, so you said I was reading your story, and one of the things how you've transitioned from anxious and afraid to a badass iron sister. Is that a mindset, or when you say that, I think that's a strong statement, and I like it. A badass iron sister. Once you transition from anxious and being afraid, so that's who you are. That's what you wanted to be. That's what you want to be seen as, right? When
Well, I didn't know that that's what I wanted to be. And that's the thing about our identity. It evolves and it changes. If somebody would have told me, I don't know, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you're going to be a bodybuilder, I would have said, no, no
okay,
way, but that's the thing with life. It evolves, like you only need to take
okay,
one step, and the next step is going to present itself. And it might be in an area or in a way that you never expected. So
right.
for me, it was when I started working out, and then I realized, oh, wow, this makes me feel really good, and
Wow.
then I took the next step and I worked out more, and then I got a coach, and then I fell in love with the lifestyle. And
Mm,
I went from PTSD, being afraid for my life. And I was always, all my life, I was afraid. I was fearful. I was driven by fear.
mhm.
But when that
Mm,
happened and evolved, oh my gosh, I changed my body. I changed my physique. I changed how I felt, how strong and healthy I felt. Because when you're a bodybuilder, you not only work out hard, but it's about what you eat, when you eat. It's
right.
about that you drink
Mm,
enough water, you get lots of rest, you barely drink any alcohol because it's counterproductive. It's a lifestyle.
wow.
And
Wow.
that made me feel in a way, and see that we always keep going back to how things make us feel.
Mm,
It's our emotions. And that's where, like today, I leg press over 650 pounds. And I'm a small person,
uh-huh.
but gosh, it feels good.
Oh, good.
And
Wow.
it's not like people often say, oh my gosh, you go to the gym 6 days a week. You're like, I don't care to go to the gym. How do you have the discipline? No, it's not the discipline. It's not discipline couldn't drive this, not for as long as I have.
Mhm.
You keep this up for a couple of months and then you're like, you know what? No, you find
Right,
a million excuses. Your mind's like,
right.
no. But
Wow.
it's the how it makes me feel. And I have days where I'm like, oh, I'm really kind of tired. And then I think about how it makes me feel when I'm in there,
Right.
and how the blood starts pumping through my body, and how it makes me feel how strong I am, how I feel about the community that's there, and it's supportive, and how I can support others in there. Like these are all, you attach yourself. When you live a power life, you attach yourself to feelings,
Mhm.
not to things. It's not like I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, yeah, like
Right,
that's going to drive me. That only lasts so long. And you're like, nah, it
right.
doesn't matter. Who
Okay.
cares?
Temporary.
Yeah.
Right.
But when you feel a certain way and you're like, yes, I can take on the world,
Right. That's
then
yeah. That's
you
what
want
my
to go
listeners.
back.
That's why we're trying to. One of the things about this podcast is we want to overcome those barriers, those obstacles that's preventing them from living their best life. Because what you're talking about right now, you're living your best life.
Yeah.
And look at the energy it gives you. Look at the meaning it gives you. Look at the purpose it's given you. We're talking about embracing the power and purpose of our emotions. I mean, look at just in your the energy. And that's the precipice of where we want to go within this realm of is your way in your way, and you've gotten out of your way based on all that you've been through.
Right.
Even the depression, the PTSD, the all of that, and not that you will forget it, but yet you're somewhat beyond that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I honestly, for the longest time, I thought it was the feelings of and the emotions of like discipline, of just working really hard and turning off the emotions. And I could spend days just working night and day, and I can push myself super hard. Like I thought that was my superpower. Gosh, I'm disciplined. God, I'm strong. And my
Right.
mom still says, "You're so strong." No, 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 no. Actually, and that's what I realized. It's the emotions. It's not the discipline that keeps us going. It's the other emotions. It's the good emotions of how we feel and how we want to feel. And it's the bad emotions of, I don't want to feel that way.
Right. Right.
That's what keeps us going. And that's what keeps us pushing beyond what's comfortable.
Right. Right. Now, it's interesting because did you go through any therapy or anything to help yourself get through this, or did
So
you experience it?
I've tried therapy in the past, and
Yeah.
it just wasn't for me.
Okay.
I felt so like, okay, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to talk, and
Right.
nobody's telling, like, there's no advice, there's nothing tangible for me to take home and change things.
Right.
And I gave up. But then I was in a very, very challenging, very difficult relationship for over 20 years. And it was emotionally abusive. I ended up with a nervous breakdown. And I remember dropping my children off for tennis practice, and I had like an hour and a half. And I was like, I sat in my car and just, I don't know. I don't know what to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And across the street, there was a spiritual center. And I saw the sign, there was a labyrinth walk. And I was like, I don't know what that is. I wasn't into spirituality at all. I
Right.
had tried going to different churches and find support and comfort. I had tried all kinds of things, but it never really resonated with me. It never did anything
Okay.
for me. So I went in there and I said, well, because I need to pick up my kids again, I might as well check this out. And that was the beginning of my spiritual journey about 10 years ago. And that's the science of the mind, how the mind works, and realizing that for the most part, we're on autopilot and our mind is in charge, which is good and a lot of times not so good. And to understand that concept and say, wait a second, so if I want to live my best life, if I want to feel good, I need to override that mind, because that mind is here to protect me by keeping me comfortable.
Right. Okay.
So that's the science of mind for me, was what turned things around. And I realized, wait a second, I need to be boss.
Wow.
I need to be boss of that mind in order to get to where I want to go. And in order for that, I need to get clarity in there. What is it that I really want?
Right. And that's where you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That changed everything for me. And there's no voodoo, it's really science of mind. It's really understanding, how do we work? How does this work? And what do we need to do to turn this around?
Right. One of the things you said, and I wanted some clarification, you said instructions aren't you said, why are instructions not helpful? Why is that? That's amazing. So if instructions aren't helpful, what is helpful?
Okay.
Because we like you say, we're conditioned, you follow these instructions, you do this, okay, you get up, you work out, you go to the gym. It's like a routine.
Right.
So just saying, not the routine itself, but it's just that instructions. I'm curious to why instructions are not helpful.
When you look online on social media,
Right.
everything is about instructions. Take this program and you will know how to do this. Or
Mm-hmm.
take this program and you will live your dream life. These are
Mm-hmm.
all instructions, but they're very superficial. What you really need to, you need a description of, like, I can share stories, and that's what I do, like in my
Mm-hmm.
podcast and the books I'm writing. I share stories about the things that I've experienced. I'm very transparent. I make myself very vulnerable because I want people to see themselves in my stories.
Okay.
And I can tell them what I did. I can tell you about how my emotions motivate me. I can tell
Mm.
you how clarity gives
Mm.
me a North Star. Like, I can tell you all of those things.
Right.
But, and that's the difference. If we follow instructions, we basically go on autopilot and say, okay, now I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to do this. This does not involve your emotions or your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But again, our feelings, our emotions are key in order to become everything that we want to become.
But aren't they, can't the emotions be demotivating too, though?
No, no, because you focus and zone in on how you want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
I want to feel high energy. I want to feel financially independent. What would that feel like?
Okay.
Like, you sit with those feelings and really feel those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
That's what your North Star is. That's where you want to get.
Okay.
But this doesn't happen by following instructions. It doesn't. It's, you got to zone in on, how do I want to feel? And then things will present themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It does. You just need to take the first step. And I can guide people with that. But
Okay.
at the end of the day, and I can guide them on how do you do that? How do you feel something that's not there? When you're depressed and you're in bed with a bottle of whiskey,
Yeah.
that's a tall order to say, okay, all right, let me feel
Right.
really high energy, really excited about life.
Right. Wow.
But just like, like the little things we talked about what kind of questions do you ask? It's not why, it's what. There's
The what?
little things that will get us there and that we can guide people with.
Mm-hmm.
But those are not instructions. Those are, okay, let me describe you what I did. And then you gonna find your way, you're gonna find that feeling, and that's what you're gonna go for.
Right. Right. So, so Sabine, so the work that you do, like right now you're doing bodybuilding, but is there any other work that you do with, you talked about your clients or, about, excuse me, unlocking the potential. Do you coach individuals into doing that?
So I do
Mhm.
coach clients. Um, and I love that because I watch it unfold and it's just like, oh my God, this is my purpose. Like, if I can guide people to find their way like I have found mine,
Yeah, that's amazing.
God, there's nothing better. There's nothing better. So yes, I do that. I do the coaching. I also launched a podcast a couple weeks ago now called The
Okay.
Power Life.
Yes,
And
like
that's
a
where
book.
I share a lot of my stories. And I have a lot of stories on the things that I've experienced. And my dream is to build a community with that where people can get inspired and can get the faith that, oh my God, I can turn this around. My circumstances are really not relevant. They're not. Because
Right.
look, she's done that. I used to
Right.
be homeless in Toronto on a park bench.
Right.
And I turned it around. If I can do that, and I'm no genius,
Right.
I'm not. I just can tap into my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. But I can teach people how to do that.
Right.
So my podcast is storytelling, is about sharing what I have experienced and what I have overcome. And I also just recently published a book, also about 2 weeks ago, called The Love Odyssey. It's a little book. It's about relationships and
Okay.
how to create um, loving, lasting relationships. Because about 7 years ago, I started dating again. I was terrified. I was like, I don't want to date. I don't want to go out there and date. Not in
Right.
my 40s, I don't.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn this into a research project. So I wrote a book about my research project of dating. And it's a fun book, but there's some really important nuggets in there that will turn things around for people. And I'm currently writing on my second book, which is, interestingly enough, it's called From Achieving to Becoming. It's all about the superpower of our emotions. But that's
Mm.
going to be a little while to go. I probably have another 10 months to go on that before
Right.
it's done.
Wow.
And there's a membership program I offer with my podcast where I give guidance. So people who can't afford the coaching, you're going to get it all in that membership program. Like the
Okay.
examples of what kind of questions to ask myself
Right.
to evolve and get to where I want to get, you know.
Right.
So I give all of that in my membership program.
Okay.
And so yeah, that's really all I do right now.
That's a lot. That's a lot. How can my listeners get in touch with you?
So I have a website called the Power Life Coach
Mm-hmm.
.com, and I'm on the podcast is on all the platforms,
Yeah.
Spotify, Apple, and so on, called the Power Life. And yeah, I'm on Instagram, Sabine underscore power underscore life.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that's
Okay.
pretty much it.
Yeah. So I'd like you to be able to provide what I call a call to action to my listeners. As you know now that my listeners are in the process of overcoming obstacles, mitigating those self-imposed barriers that's preventing them from living in their superpower. What
Mhm.
are some things or some tidbits or nuggets that you could share that once this podcast is over, that they can actually take it and do something with the advice and insight that you share with them?
I think the most important step I took that changed my life was I worked with a spiritual coach. And the first exercise she did with me was she set me down, had me close my eyes, and said, I want you to imagine your perfect day in your perfect life.
Mm.
Think about what that feels like.
Mhm.
Imagine the house you're in. Imagine every little detail. Imagine what you're wearing. What do these clothes feel like? What do you smell? Like, you imagine all of these little details, because now you create clarity on the kind of life that you want.
Mhm.
What is it that you want for yourself? What does it feel like?
Mm. Okay.
And funny enough, when I did that the first time, I saw a little wooden salt bowl next to my stove in
Mhm.
what I saw. And at some point, I found it. I saw it in a store and
Oh, wow.
I bought it. And I
Uh-huh.
still have that sitting next to my stove today. And it's my reminder of, wow,
What's
you
possible?
created it.
Right.
And
Wow.
when of course, I mean, with everything that I do today too, like there's moments when like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like,
Mhm.
it's okay. Look, you've
Mhm.
created that. You have come such a long way.
Yeah, yeah. That's
And
amazing.
that's, for me, that changed everything. And give yourself permission to dream.
Okay.
Don't
Permission.
judge yourself. And the worst question you can ask yourself, how's that ever going to happen? Don't
Right.
ask yourself. Just dream.
Right.
What would that look like? And then feel it like it's already so. Feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you do that, it's like bodybuilding. It's like flexing a muscle. The more you
Yeah.
do that, the more easily you can put yourself back into that place. At the beginning, it's hard because your mind's like, well, that's never gonna happen. How do you think that's ever gonna happen? No, no, no,
Right.
no. But the more you do that, the easier you get back into that place. You can put yourself in there. And there's gonna be moments in your life where you question everything,
Yeah.
or you hit rock bottom. You're like, you have a bad day. And then you have practiced this often enough to take you right back to that place and say,
To that
wait a second,
place. That's
there's
amazing. That's amazing. And I say that because I usually, sometimes I ask my clients, some clients I ask, like, if I gave you a scale of 1 to 10 and ask you, were you living your best life, on how would you grade yourself? A lot of them have to really think about that. So this imagining, just sitting there as your spiritual advisor shared with you, just think about imagine how you want your life to be, and perhaps that can help them, because a lot of people kind of really struggle with, what does my best life look like? What
yeah.
is that? Because they've not been asked that. They think they get up in the morning, they go to work, they come home, it's kind of the same old thing. So I like that exercise, and I appreciate you sharing that call to action with my listeners.
Yeah, because it's like I always think like we would never get into the car and start driving and not knowing where we're going. We would
Right.
never do that. Like, what's the point, right?
That's
But
true.
a lot of people do that with their lives because they're so busy
Mm-hmm.
trying to make it. But
Mm-hmm.
what are you really aiming for? What are you trying to make? You have no
Exactly.
clarity on what it is that you ultimately want. Yes, we have to pay bills. Yes, all of that. But
Exactly.
the thing is, when you have clarity on where you want to go and what kind of a life you want to live, then you will go there. It will happen.
Right.
But you need to create that clarity, and you need to invest a few minutes here and there to sit with that and let it become clear on what it
Mm-hmm.
is that you want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good.
Otherwise, yeah, you're right. You're going to spend your whole life in a hamster wheel, not going anywhere, just going in circles.
Right. Just right. That's right. That's amazing. Well, Sabine, I just want to thank you for the insight that you provided to my listeners, even to myself. I think it was amazing. I am looking forward to even doing that exercise myself, start thinking, because as you indicated, once you get to a certain point in life, these are the things that you wanted. I remember at one time I wanted this certain car.
Mhm.
Okay. So I get this car and it's like no big deal. It's kind of like, okay, now what? So it's
Right?
kind of like you said, yeah. So it's time to regroup, reframe, um, what do you say, change the narrative. Just sit back for a minute and think about and imagine what you want your life to be, and what does it look like, and how do you want to feel as you're going through this.
Right.
So
And
yeah.
like I said, this is not just a one-time thing, because as we enter different chapters of our lives, this will change. Like 20 years ago when I had my kids, my goals were a very different one
Sure.
than they're now. And
Right.
we're allowed to change our minds too.
That's
That's
right.
the thing. Like people are always like, you change your mind a lot. And I'm
Hmm.
like, no, actually I evolve.
Evolve. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
exactly, because that reminds me of the midlife crisis. Oh, they're in their midlife crisis, but it's
right.
actually they're evolving.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
They're
right.
reevaluating,
Exactly,
okay, where am I at and where do I want to go? And
exactly.
kudos to them.
Yeah, yeah. And when people say that, it's like a negative.
Yeah.
Oh, they just got a motorcycle. They're going through midlife. That's not a negative. That's
No.
not a negative at all. So again, I want to thank you, my listeners. You have the information on how to contact Sabine, and also just know that if there's some information, which I know it is, that has been insightful for you, please share this podcast with somebody, with your friends, and just know every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is your way in your way broadcast during that time. Okay. Thank you so much, and bye for now.
Thank you, Cassandra.
You're welcome.